Hello world, this is Draken, and today I'll be doing my, well, draws for Magic the Gathering, because I have a bunch of the packs from just doing the promo codes, so I have a ton of these packs now to go through. And now that I'm more awake, I can actually take the time to kind of look at what I get and see if it's useful for me. I think some of these older ones, like this Ravnica one, and a couple of the other ones, I can't use in the standard play, however I can use them in the other play. Another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies. If that creature's power is greater than Pelt Collector, put a 1/1 counter on it. It has trample. Okay, not bad. Sure, we're going to see a lot of cards that are all pretty decent. Even some common cards can be surprisingly good. I found that out just by going through a lot of the newer cards in the new series. They still have a lot of good commons that can make a deck a lot better. Hey, look, it was a mythic rare. Oh, wild card. Okay, that's cool, because then I can redeem that for any mythic rare. That's a really nice card to get. Better than just getting a random card, right? You can pick what you want. So that right there, even though it's from an older pack, I can still use it in my newer stuff. I like that. That's a good little addition to have there. A random chance to just get the wild cards you can get. So even that, just a common wild card. I ran out of those because I found a bunch of good commons that I liked as I was editing my deck. So of course I'll end up finding a bunch of other good cards here too. I'm kind of hoping more that I'll get more of these wild cards than anything else, because then you can pick the cards you want. It's basically like just purchasing whatever card from a store you want. Use their hand, you choose an online card from it and exile it. Yeah, a ton of these cards are unfamiliar. Retard creature with flying and enchantment. 3 cost. Warp Spark. We're getting these pretty often too here. It looks like on the next one I will be getting a rare one here, because after so many packs you just get a rare one guaranteed and an uncommon one guaranteed. So that is a nice bonus to just opening these packs. Even if there are packs that you might not be able to use because some of them are older, you still get the wild cards. Single combat. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifices the rest. Okay, that's a good board wipe card right there. And if I'm able to use this for the Spark series, I'll definitely probably put that in my white deck as a, you know, what happens when they have a bunch of enemies out on the battlefield or a ton of indestructible things. You can use that to clear the board, right? Always good to have a board wipe as a last option. Hey, here's a Planeswalker. I think this is the first one I've gotten, actually. One and gains haste. Not the best. Oh, Samet. I remember her from whatever the pyramid one was. I can't even remember which series that was. I want to say Amonkhet, but I think that's not quite right. It just sounds very pyramid and Egyptian type themed. Instant. Menace's Triumph, that's a good one right there. Yeah, if you have her out too, it's 3, and that's just 2 cost. That's great for a green deck. So that's nice too to get that. Green is always good to have a bunch of mana pull, so you can just pump out those really strong creatures. -5/-5 until end of turn for 3 cost. And if it dies, exile it instead. That's pretty decent. It's just a common card. Pretty sure these packs at the front here are a little bit of the older sets, so won't be able to use them in the standard, but like I said, you have the non-standard play as well. You can use any of these cards from any of these packs and the other ones. Okay, a couple more and I get a mythic. Oh, okay, it goes from rare to mythic. That's actually really awesome right there. Because then you're guaranteed to be able to get whatever cards you want just from opening these packs. Flying Death Touch for 3. That's pretty good. Where's the negative on it? Okay, there is no negative on it. It's just a Flying Death Touch, and it gets 1/1 counters for each different type of mana, so a multicolor mana deck would definitely have a good benefit for him. Equipment. Mask Annihilation enters, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token, then attach the mask to it. Equipped creature has sacrificed this creature, deals 1 damage to any target. Okay, not the worst. The nice thing is you can always sacrifice creatures when they're being blocked or when they're gonna die anyways, so that you don't really... You get the most out of them by doing it like that, so you can sacrifice your creature before it's gonna die, or when it's the target of a spell that'll kill it. Or in combat when it's gonna die and not kill the enemy, you can just be like, alright, I'll pay the, you know... Oh no, it just has sacrifice, so you could just activate that for free, so that's pretty decent actually. I mean, it's not the strongest thing, but it's 2 for a 1/1 elemental, and then you can sacrifice, deal 1 damage to any target later on. So that can work out in a couple nice ways, right? A little high for the cost-wise, but I mean, it gives you 3 life, and they lose 3 life. For a common, that's pretty standard. This is a classic card. It can change the game if you take control of like a giant green creature. That's like a 10/10 or something. You can like turn the board around. Creatures without flying can't block. That's a pretty decent card right there, because it takes away 1 of their mana. If they don't have a high mana deck, that could screw them. Oh, nice. I got a Chandra. Elementals you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. You -1 her, and she adds 2 red to your mana pool, so that's good. And deals 2 damage to any target, so that's also decent. It's not the best Chandra I've seen, but it's fairly low cost. The abilities aren't bad. The extra mana is a pretty good addition to any red deck, right? Legendary creature, human cleric. Flying Vigilance. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an angel card, a demon card, and or a dragon card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, so you get 3 card types if you're fairly lucky. So that's definitely for a mixed like race deck right there. Oh, she's not even an angel, she's just a human cleric. But she can give you an angel or a demon. Or dragons even. So yeah, she's not too bad. Fairly low cost too, just 3 cost. Protection from black to exile target card from a graveyard. Those protection guys can be very useful. If it has protection from black and you fight a pure black deck, you can just buff this guy up, and then they can't even target him with destroy spells, and Death Touch doesn't work on them. So any kind of protection cards are really good in certain situations, and white has a lot of creatures that have protection from other colors. Angelic Gift is a not bad card. Gives you flying and then you draw a card. Reach. Basically every card I'm pulling is pretty much a new card. You discard a card, Glint-Horn Buccaneers deal 1 damage to each opponent. That'd be good in a Madness deck, which you want to discard a lot of stuff. You can pay 2 to discard a card, draw a card, activate this ability only if Glint-Horn Buccaneer is attacking. Okay, that's secondary ability, not the best, not the worst though. He's a 3 cost for a 2/4 with haste, so he's pretty easy to get out early on. Throne of Eldoran. I haven't seen any of these symbols in the standard play, so you can just assume that it's not a thing. Legendary creature, Dwarf Noble. A red source you control will deal damage to opponent or permanent. An opponent controls deals that much damage +2 instead. Okay, that's fucking actually really good. For a Purifier deck right there, that's a lot of extra damage. I'd probably make him like my legendary creature commander for a pure red deck here, if I can use him in that set. I don't think I can. Yeah, it just adds those on as a bonus. Vigilance. Legendary creature. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. That's pretty good for a 1/1 counter. It is very cheap cost too, so not hard to get out. Color among permanents you control. Tap for each color among permanents you control. Add 1 mana of that color. That's very good for a multicolored deck. He could generate quite a bit of mana for you. Gadwick the Wizened. Gadwick the Wizened enters the battlefield, draw X cards. Whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent. Ooh. Now that's a perfect card for just a pure blue deck too. And he's a legendary creature, so I have 2 great legendary creatures I got from this series. I could definitely build decks around those guys. Because he would definitely be... Anything that has multiple devotions like this, 3 devotion costs in the top right, is normally going to be a very strong card. Because it's harder to get the pure devotion unless you're doing just a single multicolor deck. And a lot of people like to get the best of both worlds by adding more than one color. It's kind of up to your playstyle. I think when you're first starting out, the best thing to do is build monocolor decks because they're the easiest to guarantee that you're going to get the mana you need. Wrath deals 4 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Now you have to understand with cards that like that, it damages everything, even your own, but that is still pretty good. Like that's almost a board wipe for red. Not seeing anything else incredibly great there. That creature dies, deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. Oof. Wouldn't want to put that on someone else though. That's a pretty big bump up for just 3, so that would be worth throwing it on one of your little guys. Maybe even just in a goblin haste deck or something, you could throw that in there. Because you're not too worried about losing some of those goblins. And a land card. I've never really liked getting these rare lands. Most of them are the same. There's a couple that are really, really good, but they're few and far in between for land cards. Reach. 1/2. It enters the battlefield. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying an opponent controls. Okay, it's only 1 cost. That's good, and it does have that ability. Exile 4 other cards from your graveyard, and you can pay the escape cost and bring it back from the graveyard to the battlefield. And yeah, once it dies again, it just goes back into your graveyard. So these escape cards are pretty decent. I've seen a couple escape cards. Escapes with 3 1/1 counters on it. So then when you do pay the 5, you get... I guess a 4/5 there with reach. So this guy is a useful card because it comes out early on as just a one cost, but then later on you can make it a much bigger, little spider. It evolves when it comes back from the graveyard. And those cards that are low cost to start with, but then have a secondary function later on, are always a good addition. At the end of your end step, you gain 1 life for each creature you control with Vigilance. That could be very useful. And when you see the mana up there in the corner like that, it means you could use either or. So you could either use like 1 colorless and 2 green, or you could use 1 colorless and 2 white, or any combination of 1 colorless, 1 green, 1 white, right? So those little double element cost spells, they're a lot nicer to have in the double decks you build, because you can do that, and you can just throw it into a pure color deck too, because you could still just use all your green mana to summon it, or all your white mana, whatever you want. White tends to have more vigilance. Nightmare Menace. Actually, this set is currently going on. I fought against a person who had a ton of little mutate creatures that all had that symbol on them. They were kind of a pain in the ass. He just wiped the floor with me. Nightmare enters the battlefield. Target opponent puts a death touch counter on a creature that they control. Huh. I mean, 3 cost for a 4/5, but it gives an opponent death touch. So I probably won't be using this card, but it is a strong creature. Maybe we'll get some of those. Death's Oasis. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, mill 2 cards. Then return a creature card with less converted mana cost than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. 1 sacrifice Death's Oasis. You gain life equal to the highest converted mana cost among creatures you control. That one's a pretty decent one if you're playing with a black, green, white deck that throws cards into your own graveyard and summons them back, brings them back. This one's a decent card for that kind of a strategy. And this enchantment is actually pretty decent. This is a good one, because then whenever one of your creatures is going to die, if you have spare mana, you can just pay 2, sacrifice it, and then hit them with it. So definitely I would throw that into a pure red deck, and probably try to get a couple of those enchantments, because never a bad thing to have more than one just to get the odds up of getting it. I'd probably just stop at 2 though. It wouldn't really pay to have a ton of these in your deck. Okay, I have a couple of those, but I guess this is the first from this set. Battlefield of choice. Trample counter or a Menace counter on it. So when I was playing, they never had those like ability counters where they get a trample or Menace counter. They can kind of choose. It does give you more versatility with some of the creatures. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or you could cycle it and draw a card. Cycling is always decent just to give you more options in case your opponent has no artifacts or enchantments. Zenith Flare. Deals X damage to any target and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with a cycling ability in your graveyard. So I won't be using that because I don't have cycling anything really. Battlefield tapped. And you can tap it for 3. So this isn't too bad because it's a 3 color mana card. Those are always somewhat nice to have for when you are building multicolored decks. I won't be doing that for quite a while. 7, 8, 9 cost for an 11/11 trample. Put a trample counter on target creature you control. So this is a good card in a green deck. I would definitely put it into one of mine, just because you can cycle it early on if you need the land. And it gives something else trample, but it's also an 11/11 trample, so that's pretty giant sized and would help you quite a bit in a green deck. Create a 1/1 white human token for 4, not the best. Ritual library for a card named Wizard Squad, put it on the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library. So these kind of cards that pull creatures out of your deck and throw them onto the field, they do help you kind of get through your cards and get to your more important cards, and they aren't bad to have because they summon out more. So if you have effects that trigger when like creatures enter, this kind of a guy would be good to have 4 of in your deck. Super low cost, doesn't cost a lot to bring out one of those guys. Toughness, draw a card, not the worst. 4 cost, eh? As long as there are 3 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard. So this is a very good card. I would definitely throw him into a red burn deck. I'll probably get a couple of them. He's only a common too, so he'll be easy enough to get. I could even get 4 of him soon enough. I'm actually getting more uncommons than I am common cards here. Core 2021. So this is definitely a newer set, so I can use this. Common wild card. Archfiend's Vessel, Lifelink. Archfiend's Vessel enters the battlefield. Entered from your graveyard, or you cast it from your graveyard, exile it. If you do, create a 5/5 black demon creature token. So I don't have anything really to cast cards from my graveyard right now. I think maybe I do have a spell or two, but I'm not going to incorporate that. Flash of non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So that would shut down any token summoning decks. Put your library for up to 2 basic lands, reveal those, and put one on the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand. So that's where like green really shines, is pulling mana out of their deck, throwing it on, and then being able to summon massive creatures. Probably pass on that one. Sacrifice a creature, discard it if you do, draw a card. Destroy target tapped creature, 2 cost, fairly good white card. Death Touch, you control creature with power toughness. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So that's pretty good. It's not the worst. And with green, cost isn't really much of an issue. Enchanted creature gets +3/+1 and has flying and is a demon in addition to its other types. You may cast Demonic Embrace from your graveyard by paying 3 life and discarding a card in addition to playing its other costs. Ooh. I will probably throw that into my black deck. That is a decent card right there. And I'll definitely add that one in, because the fact that you can add it later from your graveyard just by paying 3 life in a black deck could probably get your life back with other cards and lifelink creatures. But it also gives flying, and it's only 3 costs. That's pretty cheap for the amount of damage it gives. For a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, it gets +1/+0 and gains double strike. Also, very good for a pure fire deck. A bunch of burn spells. You could have this and the other common card you saw earlier that gave double strike, and you could be doing some serious damage. Double strike is not to be underestimated. It does massive amounts of damage. 1/1 counter on each creature you control for a token deck. That is very good. First strike is always good. Roll of possibilities. Discard a card, draw 2 cards. Okay, I've seen those before. They're not bad. If they have any discard effects on your other cards, they're somewhat useful to combo them with that. Silent Dart deals 3 damage to target creature. One-time use. 5 mana for 3 damage to a target creature isn't really good. I would not recommend using that. Another uncommon card. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, have gesture deals 1 damage to any target. 5 cost, but still it could come out to work not too bad if you are running a sacrifice deck. Oh, Witch's Cauldron. 2 and tap, and you gain 1 life and draw a card. That is good. And I'll probably throw that into my 1 black deck I have. Any kind of draw mechanic that stays on the battlefield and constantly gives you the ability. And like I said, sacrifice is very, very useful. Chandra's Incinerator. 6 cost, trample 6/6. Costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponent this turn. Okay, so if you do just, 1 or 2 little fire spells that do 2 damage, or, 3 damage, this guy's cost is just dirt cheap all of a sudden. So this is a really good card. For source you control deals non-combat damage to opponent. Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature. Fuck. Yeah, I would definitely recommend putting that into a fire deck right there. It's going to be a mean one for that. Lifelink. So I do like this one. It's a 1 cost, 1/1 lifelink, and then you can pump it up later on. And with the pump abilities, you can pump them up more than just the once. So you could pump them for 10 mana, you get 6/6. It doesn't seem like that'd be very useful at first, but in later games that are more drawn out, this guy can be sometimes more useful than some of your other guys you get. Draw a card, then draw cards equal the number of cards in frantic inventory in your graveyard. So this is a perfect kind of card to add if and only if you put 4 of them in a deck, because then by the second one, you're actually getting a lot more worth out of this card than you normally would be. So definitely put 4 of these if you're putting any of them in your deck. Choose 1 for 6. Draw 3 cards or return up to 2 target creatures that are owner hand. For 6 cost, that's pretty expensive. Turn to Slag, deals 5 damage to target creature, destroy all equipment. Okay, so that is nice because it does destroy all equipment attached to target creature. Lofty Denial. Good if you're playing a blue deck with flying creatures. Zendikar Rising, huh? Skewed Swarm. Control 6 or more lands. Create a token that's a copy of Skewed Swarm instead. Ooh. That's pretty mean, actually. Once you get to 6 lands, this little guy becomes pretty mean for just summoning out the tokens. You could have a ton of them in no time at all, because once he makes a copy of himself, then the next time you play a land, both of them will make a copy of themselves. Then you'll go from like 1 to 2, then 2 to 4, then 4 to 8 kind of deal. And in a green deck where you can pull lands out, eventually you will have a swarm of these little guys. The downside, of course, is they're just 1/1s. However, there are spells that buff up all your units. Or for one turn, all your creatures get like +3/+3 in vigilance. So you could kind of make a deck around like swarming them with green creatures and landfall, right? Or a Visionary enters the battlefield, draw a card. See, that's why I love Magic so much. Like, you see a card like this, and then you kind of try to think of a strategy, and you start building a deck just based around one card, and it evolves into this whole thing, which is really fun to do. So I do enjoy that aspect of Magic a lot, that there's so many different cards, so many different strategies, and some of them will work really well, and then some of them will fail you miserably, and you'll learn from it as you play. Another legendary creature. I like the X cost. Serpent enters with a 1/1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it. If you cast this a kick spell, you may remove 2 1/1 counters from it. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. Oof, that is a decent legendary there. Even if you don't put very many counters on them. Copying some of the kick spells could be deadly depending on what they are. Sure-footed Infiltrator. Can't be blocked this turn. Deals damage to a player, draw a card. That's not too bad either. There are lots of like draw mechanics for blue, so having a creature that sits around the battlefield can be sometimes really nice if you can get him to hit. If you can't get him to draw cards, he's not really doing his job too well. Whenever land enters the battlefield under control, Deathworm gains indestructible. The 5 cost, 5/4 indestructible is somewhat decent. It's only for when their land enters the battlefield. However, you can get green spells that will pull a land onto the battlefield instantly. And that would trigger his ability right away, so you could kind of play this in a green-black deck and it would work somewhat okay. 4 cost for a green draw, not the worst. Discard a card, draw 2 cards. Tormenting Voice. I've seen that card before, but not with that art style. That's the thing. Once you start playing Magic, you will see some of the same cards in different series, but they are different. Vastwood Forest Fortification. Land. Vastwood Thicket enters the battlefield tapped. Oh, is it either a land or an instant? Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, that's not a bad card. Coveted Price. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. If you have a full party, you may cast a spell with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So I don't know what having a full party means. Your party consists of up to 1 of each cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. Okay. So if you have all 4 of those creature types out on the battlefield, you can get a free card for 4 or less. That's pretty good. This card is good on its own just because it can end up not costing you a whole lot there. But you will definitely have to play around and get a couple clerics, rogues, wizards, and wizards or warriors and wizards put into your party so that you can get the benefit out of this card. Paired tacticians and at least one warrior attack together. Put a 1/1 counter on paired tacticians for 3 cost, 3/2. That's somewhat decent. One last for each creature in your party. So again, this is a party card. I guess this series does have a lot. It's probably one of the mechanics. Each series has a different couple mechanics in it. Each creatures you control have haste for a 3 cost defender with reach that gives everything else haste. That's pretty good for a common. I would say throw that into a deck if you want some more defense and offense, really, because haste will change your game if you have like a 10-10 you play and then it all of a sudden has haste after the enemy attacks. I like getting that. That's good. That's any rare card I want. I have a good chunk of cards to pick from now, too. So yeah, I did play for the Kaladesh series, so I've actually looked through all these cards before. Legendary Tree, enters the battlefield tap to add a green mana. Pay a lot of mana to sacrifice World Tree, search your library for any number of God cards, put them onto the battlefield. Oof. So if you have a God card deck and you have a lot of mana generation or a couple cards that just give you mana of any color, this is definitely a land you would want in your deck. Sacrifice it, create a token. Let's copy a target creature you control. Okay, that's actually good. That right there is a very good just land card. Flying and trample. 2 frost. Black. Gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I might throw that into one of my decks. I think I have some snow mana. I'll just change it over to that. I do like this card. It kind of screws your opponents over. Especially when they're holding on to that one instant to counter whatever you're planning to do. First strike and boost. So anything that's a low cost but you can boost it up a bunch is a good card to have into a deck. You may discard a card if you do. You cast your second spell each turn, you gain 2 life. Not too bad. Foretell. During your turn you may pay 2 and exile this card from your hand face down. So he can be fairly cheap. You can have him out on, turn 3. Either way, even if you didn't get your 3rd mana. A legendary creature. I do like the combination of green and black. That's one of my more favorite colors to play. Herald King of Skemfar enters the battlefield. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an elf, warrior, or Tivar card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So yeah, again, if you're playing a deck that has, those specific 3 types, this is a guy to throw in there because he would definitely help you get those features. T-Bolt's Trickery, 2 cost, counter target spell. So for red, that's pretty nice. Choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. They may exile that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put an exile card on the bottom of their library in random order. So that is a fairly strong card. Especially for a pure red deck, people won't be expecting you to throw out a counter at them. And then it does a lot of milling too, which can give you a game. Especially if you have several of these in your deck. And other sources too. This battlefield until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So that's a very good legendary creature for the legendary creature battles. Whenever an attack creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Fucking very good, actually. I got a couple more of those. Sculptor of Winter. Tap to untap target snowland. Feldheim had a lot of the snow guys, I guess. Seize the spoils. Discard a card, draw 2 cards, and create a treasure. So that's somewhat decent. It does give you that extra mana that you might need. Use 1, add 2 mana of any one color and 2 mana of any other color. Spend this mana only to cast creature or enchantment spells, or you can get all your creatures get +1/+0. So in a multicolored red deck, this would be very useful, because it could get you all the colors you need to get other cards out onto the battlefield. Enchant Rune. Rune of Speed enters the battlefield, draw a card. As long as Enchant Permanent is a creature, it gets +1/0 and has haste. As long as Enchanted Permanent is an equipment, it has equipped creature gets +1/+0 and haste. Yeah, that's kind of cool. You can put this on either a creature or on an equipment. Create a 1/1 human creature token, create a 1/1 green elf token, choose any number of artifact tokens and or creature tokens you control with different names for each of them. Create a token that's a copy of it. Okay, so that's the 3 cost, gives you a bunch of tokens. At the minimum, you'll get these 2, and then you'll get 2 of those, so you'll get 4 tokens out of just this 3 cost card. 4 1/1s for 3, pretty decent amount. That's not bad. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 human warrior creature token. A fairly decent card here for a token and white-green deck. Fearjaw, Judge of Valor. Flying Lifelink. When you cast your second spell each turn, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. That would be a very good card. It's a draw mechanic. It has lifelink and flying. Fairly good back end for 5 cost and lifelink. Lifelink doesn't tend to have a huge amount of damage on them. This is a mythic rare sorcery, 6 cost. Choose a creature type. Return up to 2 creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the spell was foretold, return all creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield instead. So you may pay 2 and exile this card from your hand face down. 5, 6, 7. So the cost for this foretell actually goes up, but so does the effect. So this could be very useful later on in a longer drawn out match if they board wipe or something and you just have a bunch of one type of card in your graveyard. You could easily cast this, throw out a bunch. Having a couple high cost cards like this is nice. I'm probably not going to add this to my deck, just because I don't personally have a ton of creature cards that would be worth bringing back. Changelings are all creature types. For 1 encounter on creature you control gains hexproof. I've seen that card before, probably with a different name. And we got another rare card here. Tormentor's Helm. That's not bad if you're constantly being blocked, and it is super cheap for just +1/+1 and that effect. Definitely throw that into a red deck, and it's again just a common card, so there's a lot of good common cards that can help you make a really strong deck. You don't need all the like mythic rare best of the best. You can still make a really decent deck out of just simple cards, right? +2/+2 in reach and every creature type. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty high cost for that, but still gives you options. Legendary Creature. Dwarf Berserker. Other dwarfs you control get +1/+0 whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped. Create a treasure token. Okay, sacrifice 5 treasure tokens, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that onto the battlefield. Very good card right here. Only 2 cost. Can't go wrong with that. It's fairly weak on the back end, so it'll probably get taken out very easily. However, you get a lot of good stuff, so that was my poll video. I got a lot of cards there, and I got 7 uncommon, 10 are 7 common, 10 uncommon, 5 rare, and 2 mythic rares. So I can definitely focus on like one color type and make a very good deck now. And I would definitely recommend going through, doing all the promo code shit, and you'll get a ton of these packs. And if nothing else, you'll get a lot of these, and you'll get, from this, you can build whatever you need to have a good deck. You won't need to worry about spending money or doing any of that. You can just get everything you need just out of this. Fairly easy. Definitely go do that. I would heavily recommend it for you, any newer players. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and you check out my other videos. I'll see you guys again next time.